Yeah, you read the title correctly. Over the past year and a half, I have been rewatching and documenting every single movie that I've ever seen. And now, I'm going to rank them. This will be part one of the movie tier list. And in this part, I will be discussing the Disney movies that I've seen. And we're going to be starting off with Snow White, the very first feature length Disney film, in fact. And I have seen it. Despite the fact that it's the oldest Disney movie and also one of the oldest movies on this list, just period, I really like the art style, especially that ending part with the golden castle. Even though it was weird and out of place, I like the way it looked, so I guess I can't really fault it. The story was okay, and the songs were okay too. Nothing to really write home about except for the animation, so I'm going to put it in B tier because that means that it was good. 101 Dalmatians. I like the story of this one, but honestly, I think the pacing was a little too slow. They had this plan or something to free the dogs from the evil character. They had like different groups of characters do different parts of the plan. It kind of felt like an anthology, and it was hard to follow. And I think that brought the movie down a little bit, but not that much. Cruella, I think, was in it, and I don't know, she got a movie. I don't know why. Anyway, I'm going to put this in the C tier, which means it was okay. The Fox and the Hound. I really wouldn't watch it unless I was like, oh, I want a movie just to make me feel better. Maybe I'm a little sad. I would put on The Fox and the Hound. So yeah, this is a B tier film because I would go to it if I was sad. The Little Mermaid. This one follows a similar format to Snow White, where there's a main character and she's singing about wanting something. It's the classic Disney formula, the songs are going to be good, the animation's going to be good, the story's going to be probably good. Sometimes they're a little hit or miss, but the misses are just like, okay. I think this movie was at least good, so I'm going to be putting it in the B tier. Beauty and the Beast. This movie has a lot of beautiful moments, a testament to how the animators were able to bring to life such gorgeous scenes, such as, the ballroom dance. You know what I'm talking about if you've seen it. If you haven't seen it, there's a ballroom dance scene that is just absolutely phenomenal. My only complaint is that, spoiler alert, except not really, because it's not really all that important, and I kind of think it's a problem anyway, but the Beast, he turns back into a regular man. We're not used to the man, we're used to the Beast. It's not that big a deal anyway. I'm still going to put it in the A tier because they've done really great stuff with it anyway. The songs are, particularly in this one, much better than the previous ones. Speaking of songs being better than in the previous ones, we have Aladdin. This one is, it's cool. I don't know what else to say. The genie is obviously iconic. He has a lot of funny lines. Robin Williams, rest in peace. There's good songs. I think they're more memorable, and the story's also pretty good too. And it's actually funny because of the genie guy. So I'm going to put this one in A tier. Oops, I did not mean to right click. The Lion King. This movie is actually really awesome. Gee, Disney sure is on a roll with these animated movies. I hope they preserve them in a perfectly reasonable way. Anyway, I'm going to put this one in A tier because it's pretty good. I don't really think I can add much to it that hasn't already been said, not only about this movie in the past, but the previous movies. Songs are good, story's good. The Lion is king. A Goofy movie! Goofy! This was a nice change of pace for the Mickey Mouse series. I don't really know what they did prior to this movie coming out, but giving Goofy like a son and then having it be like father-son bonding that's pretty cool. And it's also pretty funny. There's a lot of good jokes in there. There's some cliches in there, but I don't really mind them because they're not a big part of the story. A big part of the story is the funny jokes and Goofy and his son, Little Goofy. But anyway, I'm going to put this one in the A tier. Toy Story 1. Now this movie revolutionized CGI. I'm not going to claim that it was the first movie to do CGI because I don't know if that's true or not, but it certainly was at least one of the first movies to look good with CGI. Of course, when I say it looks good, I mean, obviously for the time, it looked phenomenal, and when you look back on it and then compare it to some of the modern CGI movies, it's not going to look as good. But I personally think that it still holds up. And you know what? Tim Allen and Tom Hanks do a pretty good job at portraying these characters, I think. And even though that it was probably really hard to make this movie, at least for the first time, I'm glad that they stuck with it because they're like the best actors for these characters that I could think of. I can't think of anyone else who would play Woody and Buzz. Like when I hear Tom Hanks or Tim Allen in another movie, I just think, oh, that's Woody or Buzz, because they're just that good. I'm going to put this one in the A tier. The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Fun fact, the first time I watched this movie was for French class, so it was entirely in French. That was an interesting way to watch this movie for the first time, but I rewatched it in English and I was able to follow it better. The villain is pretty good in this one. I think that he's a good representation of evil because he is just quite literally evil. I think this is one of the first instances of a twist villain. He's like obviously the antagonist at first, but then it's revealed later on that he's actually evil and not just, oh, he's an antagonist. I thought that was really interesting. So yeah, good songs, good animation, whatever. You know the drill with these Disney movies. A tier. Pooh's Grand Adventure. This is kind of like Fox and the Hound, where I'll just put this movie on if I'm in a bad mood or something, because it's just one of those movies that make me feel happy and stuff. Because it's Winnie the Pooh. How could you not feel happy? Yeah, I'm gonna put this one in B tier. Hercules. I liked it. I guess there's really no big surprise in there. Danny DeVito is in this movie. If you watch it, you will hear Danny DeVito. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, this is a B tier film. I liked it, but I don't know if I A tier liked it. Mulan. This is a pretty good representation of why sexism is bad. So, I've gotten to this point, and I'm starting to realize that I don't really have a lot more to add when you just have so many films that just, they follow kind of like a similar formula, but they're all good, and I don't really know what to say about them. Let's just put this one in A tier and move on, because it's good. Oh, look at this! We have something that you probably have never heard of. The Jungle Book. Mowgli's story. Not the original Jungle Book. It's an adaptation. Prior to this video's conception, I have not seen this film in 13 years. How I even remembered that I watched it is beyond me. There is one scene that I remember, and it was of these wolves fighting over a carcass. I looked at this movie and I was like, could this be it? And I just skipped to a random point, and it just so happened to be that scene. And I was like, oh yeah, that's it. And then I watched it, and it was alright. I mean, I don't know what else to expect when the actors are a kid, and then animals, like real animals, but they have voiceovers. So it's not really all that convincing. And other than that, this movie's just kind of boring overall. Well, I saw it, and I'm glad that I remembered it, because it gave me an experience that I'll never forget, and that was remembering that I saw it just because of the carcass scene. But anyway, yeah, no, this movie is just mostly boring. I'm just going to put this in D tier. A Bug's Life. Now, I don't know what the general consensus of this movie is, but I always assumed that people didn't like it. Now, I know this movie has that one trope in it that everyone hates. Oh, you lied? You're a bad person. And then everyone's sad, and then they come back and they're like, I'm sorry, it's okay. And this movie has that. And in this one, it's actually pretty bad, because it's just like, if they thought about it for a little bit, then they would have realized that even though he did lie, it wasn't really for like a bad thing, because he ended up doing stuff that was pretty smart. But then they're like, oh, but you lied. So it's just kind of silly. But that's the only bad part of the movie. The villain is pretty cool because of the message that he shows, his existence. This is a B tier film because it has some good writing in it. I just think in the plot department, it wasn't particularly good, but in like the characters and the themes, that was pretty good. Tarzan. Tarzan is a guy who lives in the jungle. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about this movie. I watched it. I liked the songs. I thought the story was kind of interesting. The villain dies in a really kind of brutal way. Anyway, yeah, no, I still liked it, even though I don't really have anything to say about it. So I'm just going to put this one in B tier and move on. Toy Story 2. This is the first S tier of our list. Now you may be wondering, why are you going to put this movie in S tier? And that is why I'm going to answer your question. Not only is it a good sequel in the sense that it expands on the previous movie, but it also has a lot of good writing and a lot of heartfelt moments as well. They use music to their advantage in one scene, and I think that that was pretty cool because I like music. There's a pretty good twist villain in there. Like, you don't see it coming, but when you watch the movie back, you'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense why he would say this, because he has ulterior motives. But yeah, this movie is well written. I'm glad that they made a Toy Story 2 after Toy Story 1. So that is why it is an S tier film. Fantasia 2000. This is a weird one because it's not like a traditional movie where there's characters and they're talking and stuff, but instead it's more like an opera. It's like an opera because music is like the sole representation of what is happening, what they are animating, and it's stuff like that. I think that's pretty cool and interesting, but lack of story, of course, I can't put it that high. I'm just going to put it in the B tier, even though it's a beautiful film, and I would recommend that you watch it at least one time. You mean me? Yes. The Emperor's New Groove. This is a movie about Cusco, and I think it is pretty funny. The story's fine. It's nothing to write home about, but it is insanely funny. Especially this one character who's like the villain's henchman. His name's Kronk. He's like the funniest character. I think he should get his own movie. No, I'm just kidding. He shouldn't. I don't think that'd be a good idea. Anyway, I'm going to put this movie in A tier because it makes me laugh every time I watch it, and I think that's a mark of a good comedy film. Monsters, Inc. Now, I think that this movie, out of all of these ones, has the best duo of characters of all freaking time. Mike and Sully's friendship is not only comedic because of their banter towards each other, but it's also very heartfelt because you get to see how their interests eventually start to clash at each other. And that not only creates pretty funny jokes, but it also makes for a very interesting story. And I think that's the best part of the movie, of like pretty much all time. And there's other aspects of the movie that are pretty good too. So I think this is probably, if you're going to watch a Disney film, this is a must watch because it's so iconic. Mike and Sully are inseparable. Of course, I'm going to put this in S tier. Where else would I put it? Lilo and Stitch. My only notes from watching this movie is just I liked watching it. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I did like watching it. What do you think? I think it was cool that they had this like alien character who seems completely inconsolably evil, and then he becomes consolable, and then he ends up mending a broken family. I think that's a pretty cool story, just in and of itself. Not only that, but there's some pretty sad parts of this movie, but that makes the happy parts even happier. Because this movie makes me feel happy and good, I'm going to put it in A tier. Speaking of sad, we have Finding Nemo. So, if you know the story of this movie, it is really sad. I shouldn't be smiling. It's very sad. The story starts off really depressing. It just hits you like a truck, but not like a truck that you can see, like a truck you can't see. Like an invisible truck. It hits you like an invisible truck. So that just paints the tone for the rest of the movie. They do a good job with that dark tone. It works well with the rest of the movie, and as well as they have a character to kind of contrast with that being the bluefish Dory. So this movie is well written, and I think it's a pretty good watch. I'm going to put it in the A tier. Home on the Range. Every time I see someone talk about this movie, they don't like it. I mean, I'll never understand why. I watched it and it was perfectly fine. I actually enjoyed watching it. I thought it was pretty funny, at least. I didn't think it was like anything to write home about, but I liked watching it. I don't get it. I didn't get it. I don't know what it was. Anyway, I'm gonna put this in a B tier because I thought it was funny. And I liked watching it, yes. The Incredibles. If you ever wanted an example of how you write a movie really good, I think this one is it. Mixing superheroes and family and then making it about the family is one of the best ideas I've ever seen. It's like the superhero stuff adds to the family stuff, and it makes it easy to understand, but it's still incredibly deep and complex and very mature for a PG-rated movie. There's some times I watch this movie and I still get disturbed by some of the scenes that they actually do. Like seriously, like some of it is actually kind of sad, like even more so than Finding Nemo. And Finding Nemo is really sad. But anyway, The Incredibles is very well written. They walk the tightrope between too immature and too mature, and they walk it really well. They walk it back and forth, and then they do front flips and cartwheels around it. So, yes, this is definitely going into S tier, probably top, but I'm not enter tier ordering them because that's silly to do for now. Chicken Little. This movie is hated by almost every single person that has eyes and uses them to watch this movie. And it's clear to see why. There's a lot of immature jokes about pee and the like. That's not funny. And then there's other jokes that are just pop culture references, like, oh, do you remember the song from the mid 2000s? No. I was, like, probably not even alive during most of that. I can't really fault the movie for that one too much because it's probably less annoying now. But still, it's worth mentioning. I mean, there's a lot of tropes in it. A lot of people hate Chicken Little's dad because he's a bad father, I think. Overall, the movie's just lazily written. They have a lot of tropes. There's a lot of bad jokes. So obviously, I'm going to put this movie in C tier. They may be wondering, why are you going to put it in C tier if you just explained perfectly why the movie's bad? Well, it's a little thing called, I think it's funny. It's just a funny movie to watch and just be like, this is a movie that was written and then animated. They did that, and then they created this movie, and now I'm watching it. Just this one in particular, Chicken Little, is just so funny to watch just because the idea that they created it is funny. I don't understand it, but it is my tier list, so I get to do whatever the freak I want, so I'm going to put it in C tier. Yeah. Kronk's New Groove. Oh wait, didn't I just say that they shouldn't make a movie about Kronk? And now here it is, and I saw it. I don't know why I saw it. It's the only direct-to-DVD sequel that I watched. But here it is, and I can't really say it's as bad as I thought it would be. It was just okay. It was an anthology, so they had a really hard time trying to come up with good writing for the movie, and it's just all basic stuff. I mean, a lot of it just feels like either the same jokes or it's just not the same humor as the original Emperor's New Groove, which obviously it's not all bad. I mean, there's good parts. They just don't make a good entire project. So I'm going to put this in the D tier. I probably won't watch it again. And I probably won't recommend anyone watch it just because it's not great. Nothing awful, but it's not great. Speaking of awful, The Wild. The Wild, I could only describe it as a tragedy of filmmaking. The characters are not likable, like, at all. None of them are interesting to watch. None of them are funny. They all tell bad jokes. If you want to talk about bad fathers, you gotta mention the main character. He's a hypocrite. He's pushing his son to be this, like, super cool lion, dude. And he's not even a super cool lion. Why is he doing this? I don't know. It makes him a really bad character. And the son, you just feel so bad for him. You feel bad for him. That's, like, his only inclusion in the movie. Don't get me started on that stupid freaking koala. If you want to talk about unfunny side characters, you have to bring up this guy. Because, like, every joke he tells is either way too inappropriate to be in a movie like this and so jarring and unfunny, or it's just plain unfunny. Also, there's just this one joke. There's this one line. This one horrible line that the squirrel says. I don't even want to repeat it. It's that bad. It's both unfunny and it's so out of left field that I got whiplash when I watched it. Like, literally, I fell asleep and then woke up again in like half a second when I heard that line. The only amount of enjoyment you could ever get from watching this movie is because there is a cult of dancing bison on an uncharted island that the lion's son gets sent to. That's it. That's, like, the only thing. Oh, yeah, and one of the lead bison guys played by Patrick Warburton. So he's the only thing in this movie that is at all interesting. Anyway, it's terrible. I'm going to put it in the F tier. Yes. F. Cars. I like Cars. I think that Cars is just a good movie. I don't understand why people don't like it. I like how its down-to-earth nature and slower pacing contrasts with the main character, who's a race car and very narcissistic. And pretty much everything in the movie kind of comes to combat his personality because he's bad, he's mean, he's a jerk, he's a meatyhead. And everyone kind of calls him out on it. Even the movie itself, because it's slower paced and it's taking place in a very dusty old place, just somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And I like that it completely just combats this person that you don't like at first because he's mean. I think that's a cool way to write a movie. And obviously, Chick Hicks is funny. I can't bring up this movie without bringing up Chick Hicks. I'm going to put this movie in A tier. Yes, A. Not B, not C, A. Because I think it is a well-written and funny movie. I'd really hate to do this to such a beloved film, especially since it was one of those movies that I found so elusive to watch. I could never find it, but every time I watched it, I was so excited because it was super fascinating to see this time travel adventure. But now, I have easy access to it, and when I rewatched it, I found some faults. And unfortunately, the faults outweigh the good parts, for me at least. Most of my issues with this film comes with its pacing. It tries to do too much in the amount of time that it's given, so it feels like it has to go really fast in order to get to the end of the movie and then also show everything that it wanted to show. There's this futuristic family, and we're introduced to each of them, and it feels like we just don't have enough time to get used to them or to like them because, we have to be introduced to all of them, and then they have to be on an adventure, and then they have to have that dinner scene, but then, it has to have this wacky part. Like, everything, it just happens so fast. And it's too much to keep up with, especially the parts that are way more serious and dark than the other parts. It feels really weird to go from this like happy, jovial, silly scene to this really dark and depressing scene. And in my opinion, it made the movie hard to follow, and I just couldn't enjoy it. None of the serious moments hit as hard because it feels like I was just wasting my time blazing through some of the sillier parts. And none of the funny parts had good setups because we didn't get used to anything that they brought up in time. Overall, the movie is just way too fast. I just couldn't enjoy it. I'm gonna put it in D tier. I'm sorry. Ratatouille. Apparently, this is the first movie that I've ever seen, in my life. I was like 2. But this movie is pretty good. A rat who likes to cook food. When you think about it, it sounds so silly, but they do so much with it in the time they have. They talk about art and artists. There's a whole amount of themes in there that I actually didn't even catch on to. I can't think as highly of this movie as other people would just because I didn't catch, everything, and that's just my fault. I'm still going to put it in S tier, though, just because the things that I do understand, they do hit me pretty deep, and I just gotta say, it's pretty good. Also, it's funny. The guy crashing into the car. Bolt. Now, this was a really tough one to rank, because it has all... No, I'm just kidding, it's B tier. I think they could have done a bit more with this one. Even though the story is basic, I still do like it. It's like Toy Story, what Buzz goes through, but he's the main character instead of the side main character. I do like the characters. I like Bolt and Mittens, because they do work well together even though they're from 2 completely different mindsets. And the movie is just, it's sweet. I don't know what to say. It just has that nice feel that Winnie the Pooh and Fox and the Hound have to it, where I can just watch it and be like, goodness, I feel happy now. And I think that's a good quality for a movie to have, especially when some movies don't make me feel that. Good, solid movie. Could have been more, but I accept it for what it is. Disney's A Christmas Carol, because they wrote it. Not some guy from the 40s. Books? Never heard of him. This movie is strange and scary. If you haven't heard of it, that might come as a surprise, but they decided to make this movie a lot more dark and have creepy moments in it. But I do like this interpretation of the story because it makes Scrooge feel more human. The scary moments work well tonally with the more sad moments, and that's what kind of makes this movie much more unique in my opinion. Although I will say there's a chase sequence with a evil shadow horseman and a carriage and a horse, a couple of horses, and I think it goes on for a little too long. But other than that, I think this is a very interesting movie. If you're not afraid to delve into a bit more creepy movie with scary imagery, I would recommend this one. I would give it a B tier. The Princess and the Frog. This movie is actually pretty awesome. This movie takes place in New Orleans So they take a lot of culture from that place and they put it in this movie, and they do it in a nice way. And it's just really cool to see New Orleans. New Orleans is cool. Oh yeah, what's that thing? The story? Oh yeah, it's pretty good too. But you know what? For the first time, I could speak about the songs for a Disney animated film because the songs are much more interesting. They're really cool. It's like jazz, I'm pretty sure. And jazz is awesome. I'm going to place it in the A tier. Toy Story 3. A well written and fitting end to the Toy Story franchise. It's smart that they chose to do an in-universe time skip to coincide with the theatrical release because it allows for the audience to relate more with the characters, at least when the movie came out. And they do a lot with this movie. They make it about growing up, not just the kid because he's older, but also the toys, and they have to move on because the kid's older and he doesn't need them anymore. And it's a bittersweet movie, but it makes for a good ending that ties up all the loose ends that the previous movies have made loose. Well written, just like its predecessor, and it is pretty fun to watch. Tangled. Now this movie provides us with a good love story, reminiscent of that of Aladdin, where you think, oh, those two characters can't get together, they're so opposite, but then they do. And they just make for a really cool couple to watch. They're funny and they have cool action sequences, they work well together, they have a nice little love scene where she heals his hand with her magic hair, and then he's like, well, that's cool, and then there's flying lanterns and stuff, and they're in a boat. It's PG. Also reminiscent of Aladdin, it's pretty funny too. Especially the horse guy. He's not a guy, he's just a horse. But he's funny too. It's overall a pretty good movie. Just solid all around. I would recommend it. A tier. Cars 2. What a silly movie. Just the idea of continuing Cars is a bit strange. I think Cars by itself was an alright movie to just have on its own. And the idea of continuing it is a little weird. But the way they did it is just even weirder. How could you possibly come up with a plot like this? I don't know what they were thinking. But whatever they were thinking, they were onto something. And not just, like, illegal stuff. I mean, like, brain power. Because I almost thoroughly enjoyed this movie. They almost got away with it. Because this movie is just so funny. It's so absurd that I just can't help but like watching it. It's like Chicken Little, but it feels more intentional. There's just a little caveat, though. And that's our main character, Mater. Now, if you've never watched Cars, you're probably wondering who I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the main character of the first movie, who is Lightning McQueen. I'm talking about the main character of this movie, who's his best friend, Mater, the tow truck by Larry the Cable Guy. He's our main character. Now, in the first movie, I think his inclusion was pretty good. He was a necessary character, and I know people think he's annoying, but in that movie, I think he was pretty funny, at least. He felt necessary to the plot. In this one, I mean, he is obviously necessary to the plot because he's the main character, but he's not funny. He's actually pretty annoying. They don't write him annoying like they do in the first movie, where it feels like, oh, you understand why, because he kind of shows McQueen why he's a meatyhead. But in this movie, he's just kind of annoying just because, and then his whole character arc is that he needs to learn to not be annoying because he's embarrassing himself. That's the whole character arc. I wouldn't really care too much if he wasn't annoying, but he unfortunately is. Now, this doesn't bring the movie down to the lower half of the tier list, but it unfortunately brings it to C tier. Brave, whenever I try to understand Brave, it doesn't make any sense. Let me just get this out of the way. I know they fired the director of the movie, or the original director left. I don't know why. I don't know what happened, but they had to get a new director and they had to rewrite the movie or something. I don't know if the movie would have been better the way it was or if this is the better outcome, but it feels incomplete, as well as most of my rewatching of this movie because I could never seem to finish it for some reason. But I never particularly enjoy watching this one because it feels like they're always setting up to do a theme thing, but then they never do. You understand that the main character is trying to fight for her individuality, but then they drop that like somewhere midway through, and then they just kind of make you think, that actually didn't really matter. She just needs to do what her mother says. And then you don't really like the mom because she's mean. I don't really think she apologizes at all for it. I know like this at the end when this thing happens and her mom's okay, then you just can't help but thinking back to that original scene in the beginning where they get in a fight, and then you come back and she still hasn't changed her mind. It's kind of the same, but now it's at the end of the movie, so you're expected to forget it. So it just doesn't feel complete. If none of that made any sense, it's because I don't understand what they were trying to go for. Yeah, I'm just gonna put it in D tier. It just feels incomplete. Monsters University. Now, I am a Monsters University enjoyer. I know what you're gonna say if you're someone who doesn't like this movie. Oh, it's just the ending. Oh, it's just the themes. You don't like the rest of the movie. You just like that part. And to that I say, no, I don't. I actually like the rest of the movie. And I do have an explanation for it. So first off, the ending doesn't just work just because it's in isolation a good idea. It works because the rest of the movie builds up to it. And especially when it comes to Mike, who is the main character in this movie, we need to understand him more because he's the main character. And his problem is the thing that is like most amplified at the ending. The thing is that the longer the movie goes up, the more they build up his confidence and his character only for it to come crashing down. And that's what makes the ending work so much better, and that's what makes the theme work so much better. So there's your first reason why the rest of the movie works in tandem with the ending and the themes is because it builds him up. Also, it brings antics, and they're funny. So I like watching it because of funny antics. So I'm going to put this in A tier. Frozen kind of reminds me of Ed Sheeran's Shape of You. When that song came out, it was literally everywhere. I could not get rid of it for the life of me. Anyway, that doesn't really have anything to do with Frozen, because Frozen is actually a good movie. Now first, let's get the elephant out of the room so that we can get the tiger in the room. I don't know how that analogy works. There is a forced twist villain in this movie. A forced twist villain is when the writers don't really know what to do with the plot, so they make one of the characters evil. It's just really weird. It just comes out of nowhere. It feels like they just put it in there just to have conflict. But other than that, this movie is actually decent. I'd watch it again, actually, I'd say. Of course, the songs are the biggest hits of this movie. They're memorable, they're catchy, and the characters are pretty charming too. There's a group of 4 characters, and I think they work really well together. They're funny, they're interesting to watch, they just have cool interactions. I just like, it's just a fun movie to watch. It's like a road trip, but it's in the snow, so it's cool. Yeah, I'm gonna put this in the B tier, because I do enjoy watching it whenever I do. Big Hero 6. If you know anything about online discourse of this movie, you're probably thinking of one scene.
That was his mistake.
And that explains the biggest problem with this movie. So this movie has a forced twist villain in it as well, but it feels a lot more egregious. He's supposed to be a professor at a college. His main reason for doing evil things is to attack this company. But anyway, he's evil to the company guys, but then he's just also evil to the college students for some reason. That doesn't make any sense because they were like literally the only people that would have understood him and what he was going through. They actually end up helping him. But other than that, it's not really all that interesting. I like Baymax, the robot guy who you can see on the left of the cover thing. He's a pretty funny character because he's just a silly robot. He's obviously the best part of the movie, but he doesn't take up a big portion. I'll put it in D just because I don't really enjoy watching it, but I'd say it's on the higher end of D tier because there's parts of the movie that I do like. Now let's talk about a movie that I do like, and that's Inside Out. Inside Out is a cleverly written movie, both in concept and mostly in execution. I'll get to the mostly in a second. But it's a movie that dissects emotions by having the main character be emotions themselves. And not only is it cleverly written, it's also one of the most emotional movies that I've ever seen. It tackles some very deep subject matter when it talks about what the emotions can do and what they can't do. And another good part about this movie is that it has a lot of creative ideas and settings, and some of these ideas lead up to good jokes and they lead up to good plot points. It's just a fun movie to watch, especially if you're going into it without knowing what's going to happen. Now let's get to that mostly in execution part. It's not really a huge deal. There's just a plot hole that involves the memory spheres. I won't get into what it is because if you don't notice it, it won't ruin the movie for you. But other than that, I'm going to give this movie an A tier because it is well written. Very good watch. I would recommend it. So in this part of the movie tier list, The Good Dinosaur has the lowest ranking out of every film here. Of course I'm going to put it in F tier. Now let me explain. I've never been able to relate or follow along with the duo of characters in this movie. And then there's a lot of events in this movie that I just completely forget happened because they feel so out of place. Like, there's these pterodactyls, and they're evil. I don't know how they fit into the movie or what their relevance is at all, but they're just there. And then there's a band of dinosaurs that save the little green one, the little one that you can see here. They save him from the pterodactyls, I think. I don't remember why, and then they talk about a really gruesome scene where this one T-Rex killed alligators. It's really out of place. It doesn't make any sense. A lot of things in this movie just don't feel like they belong, and it just doesn't make for a very fun experience, especially since there's nothing going for like rewatching it at all. So I'm gonna put it in F tier. Something to note about me is that when a movie is overly bad, I tend to slightly, barely enjoy it a little bit more than a movie that's just not good at all. That's what the difference between The Wild and The Good Dinosaur is. Zootopia. Every time I watch this movie, I realize that the themes aren't as subtle as the movie thinks they are. It's not really a huge issue, but it means that I have to be in a certain mood to watch parts of this movie. Other than that, I think this movie does tackle a pretty important topic. I'm not going to say what it is. You'll just have to watch it and find out for yourself. I do enjoy the duo of characters in this movie, that being a rabbit, who is a police officer, and then the fox, who is a hustler. They make for a funny duo. I like their banter. They're just pretty cool. Although I will say one thing. While mostly inconsequential, there is a forced twist villain in this movie. It just kind of comes out of nowhere, unless you're paying attention to a very, very small detail. But yeah, it doesn't really amount to much in the story aside from a conflict. I think it's less consequential than Frozen's twist villain, which is saying something. I'm not really going to take too much points off of it. It's still going in B tier though. Finding Dory. I think it's pretty good. I like the cast of characters that are introduced in this movie. They might not be as good as the side characters in Finding Nemo, but they're pretty good too. And I think the themes are integrated a little better and are more subtle than in like Zootopia, because they follow the characters and the plot more. So yeah, it's a good movie. I think it's better than Zootopia. I think Zootopia should take notes on this movie, even though it came out before Finding Dory. I mean, who cares? They were probably both in production at the same time. Finding Dory is written a little bit better. I'm going to put it in A tier. Moana. I think sailing and pirates and the ocean is a cool setting to have a movie take place in. And the stuff they do with it was pretty good too, as well as the story being pretty cool too. So I'm going to put it in A tier because I did enjoy watching it when I did. Now we have Beauty and the Beast 2017. So here we are in the part of cinema where they take the original animated film and make it into a live action piece. Why did they do this? But I can't say much about this one that hasn't already been said about the original, because they're basically the same film. I can't really give it a high score because it's just, what if Beauty and the Beast was live action? I guess I'm just going to put it in D tier because I mean, why would you watch this one if you could just watch the original one, Cars 3. I feel like I'm in the minority when I say that Cars 3 is my least favorite in the Cars franchise. I know what you're going to say. What? Now let me explain myself. So in this movie, you take the racer car from the previous movies, and he has a trainer because he's old, and the trainer is trying to teach him how to do stuff. But then it turns out that she wanted to race, and now she races for him. I think that plot point would have been good to show that, the racer car, he can't race anymore, but at least he can help in whatever way he can. That would have been cool, but it just comes out of nowhere. Now here we get into something else, another trope that I don't really like. Forced theme integration. I'm just coming up with names for these, by the way. Forced theme integration is when the movie thinks that the audience might not understand what they're trying to get at. So they just info dump. And that's what this movie kind of does. Like, the trainer car is just like, they wouldn't let me race, and I couldn't do it. I gave up, and now I'm a trainer. And she just says that kind of out of nowhere. When you take the rest of the movie into account, this scene really doesn't make any sense. So the big issue with this movie is that now you have a first half that feels like it's completely useless to the second half, which comes out of nowhere. It makes for a very confusing experience. I personally don't enjoy watching it because of that. So I'm going to put it in the D tier. Though I do know that people like this movie, and I understand why, but you're wrong. Coco. Now, this movie has some pretty good elements about it. The setting and the music are phenomenal, and there's parts of the movies where they set the emotions up to high and they create these beautiful scenes that are just a joy to watch all around. Unless you consider this one small issue. That being that it has the same issue that Brave has, where you have this authority figure, parental, it's the grandma in this case, that is completely shunning the main character, his hopes and dreams, because he wants to become a musician, and then she's like, no! And then throughout there, he learns that family is actually most important. The audience is left wondering, okay, so was the grandmother in the right then? Like, are we expected to believe that this main character will just go back to his home where his grandmother will just harass musicians just because that's his family? That doesn't feel like the right thing to say. Of course, he does put her in her place, but for a second there, you do kind of believe that he's thinking like that's right, but it's obviously not right. I would have had it an A, but I think B tier is where that flaw brings the movie down to. Still a good movie. I would still recommend you watch it if you just understand that maybe some things are a bit shaky. Earlier I spoke about how Disney created Beauty and the Beast, but in live action, and how lame that was. But now I'm going to talk about a movie that they did something similar, and it actually worked. Christopher Robin. Rather than thinking, oh, wouldn't it be cool if they made Winnie the Pooh but in live action, they thought, okay, how can we expand on the story of Winnie the Pooh and have it work in live action? And that's what they did. They ended up making a movie that makes sense in live action. In fact, if they animated it, it would have been really weird. You know, everything's a lot more serious. So that's why the live action works better. Live action is just, it's so much more dull. It's so much more like drab and dreary that they make like the colorful parts stand out a lot. That is good writing right there. Not only that, but it also has the feel-good nature of Winnie the Pooh. So I'm going to give this an A tier. Toy Story 3 was a cleverly well-written and fitting end to the Toy Story franchise. And now we have this one. So, pretty much every single aspect of this movie is not good. Its existence is not even good. So first off, it's not a good sequel because it takes the pre-existing characters and either throws them aside or it makes them way worse. It does that so that it can introduce new characters who aren't really all that interesting. It's a shame to see the characters be turned into what they have been turned into for this movie to exist. The villain is downright evil, of course, but the worst part about it is that she gets rewarded for her honesty. She never gets punished for her actions, despite the fact that she almost mutilated the main character, fully intentionally. No remorse. And then she's like, I'm sorry, I'm just so sad. And they're like, oh, it's okay. And then there's so many things wrong with the plot. Like, it jumps between time and stuff randomly happens. The characters make stupid decisions. There's a lot of logical inconsistency. Does this at all sound familiar, what I'm saying? If not, let me show you.
Toy Story 4 is a colossal failure from almost every aspect of storytelling. The plot is less cohesive than Swiss cheese. The characters are all shells of their former selves, and that's putting it very lightly in some instances. The consistency of the cause and effect is equivalent to that of a game of bunco, where characters either get insanely lucky or insanely...
So, here's the issue. I did not come to this conclusion myself. When I first watched this movie, I thought nothing of it. The only negative I could think of is that it ruined the ending of the third movie, and that's it. I watched it, I may have laughed, I may have thought it was good, I may have thought it was bad, I might not have enjoyed it at all, who knows. But the problem is that I can't think of this movie without remembering that video. That's a problem for opinions, because now I don't have one. Since this is my tier list, I can't rank it the way he said, but I can't think of the movie in any other way. So what does this mean? Well, there's only one thing I can do. You get the idea. So, there you go. That's my opinion on Toy Story 4. I can't have an opinion on Toy Story 4. I'd recommend that video, by the way, if you have 6 hours of your life that you would like to spend watching that. I think it's a pretty funny video, but it's also well written, too. By all means, go check out his video. I might link it in the description if I remember, or put it at the end of the video also if I remember. Alright, let's just get this out of the way. Frozen 2 is a disaster, and it's not even trying to hide it. I did not know what the plot points were at all. There was so many different things that were trying to go on, but then they got interrupted by other things that happened to have lore, and there was background stuff, and they made so many references to the first one, because they were like, oh, if you remember the first one, then you'll think this one is good. It's really messy. Watching it is like taking a quiz. Like, you have to remember what's going on, but then when you get your answers back, you realize that the questions were all messed up and there wasn't a right answer anyway. So I'm going to put this one in F tier. I just can't watch it without feeling so confused as to what's actually trying to happen. Onward. I can't say I was much disappointed by this film, mostly because I didn't have any expectations going into it. There were some parts that I liked, such as the main characters, they're wizards, and the spells that they cast were pretty creative and they're kind of cool to watch. And I like the ending too. It's a pretty good ending. But other than that, there's not really anything interesting about it. I would watch it maybe again, just for like those cool moments. So I'm gonna put this in C tier. Soul. This movie's structure is like Monsters University, where if you watched it, you'd probably think like, oh, so much of this movie is completely useless. Although, when you get to a certain part, you're like, oh, now it all makes sense. It feels a little bit more intentional, and I think that it works to this movie's benefit. A thing that I like about it is that it uses different art forms to represent like the mood and emotion and stuff. Like, it uses color, it uses music, it uses movement. It's just eye candy to watch at some points. Like, sometimes I'll just be in awe that they've been able to create something like this. So yeah, Soul is a really good movie, and it made me really happy that movies like this could still be made. And I would give it an S tier. Encanto. It's pretty good. I mean, there's one part that's kind of but we don't talk about that. I like how this movie kind of changes up the old Disney formula and creates like a kind of a new one, where instead of having this like lady meet like a dude, and then they're just like friends or something. It's more about her family and stuff, and that's kind of cool. And they have superpowers. It's not like The Incredibles. It's a little different. I like the songs. I think the songs are top tier Disney songs. And there's a lot of creative elements in it too. I'd give this movie an A tier, all around. Turning Red. Well, the thing about this movie is that it has some pretty high highs, but it also has some low lows. What do I mean by that? Well, let's talk about the story first. So they use a lot of metaphors and stuff to portray the story and the themes that they're going on. And I like that. I like the story that they tell and the way that they tell it. And I think that's pretty cool. Now let's talk about the part of the movie that I don't like, and that's its humor. So I guess something that I should mention is that this movie is about a teenager. Of course, they're going to have jokes that relate more to that audience. So they're not that great, at least in my opinion. I didn't find them funny. I found most of them to not be funny. I mean, there was a couple that were alright, but it was just got kind of annoying at some point, and I was like, And you know what? I think they kind of balance each other out, so I'm going to put this one in the C tier. Lightyear. Oh, they made another Toy Story movie, and it's a spin-off. Doesn't make any sense. Even in a financial standpoint, that doesn't make any sense why this movie was created. The writing is what brings this movie down a lot. So none of the characters are really interesting, and none of the things that they set up are set up really all that well. They don't make a lot of sense. Like, one of the characters' literal only aspects is that they can make a bomb out of anything. I don't know how that makes sense. And the bad part about it is that that's not the worst character that's written. There's another character whose only character trait is that he's got a pen. That's it. That's all he serves to the story. Twist villain. Confusing. Does not make any sense. If you were to watch this movie and try to predict what the villain is, you'd be so confused. I still am. And it's been a while since I've seen this movie. I'm going to put this movie in D tier because it has some so bad it's good qualities, but it's mostly just not good. Inside Out 2. This is the most recent Pixar movie that I've watched. It's pretty good. With their recent track record of sequels, that being Lightyear, Toy Story 4, Cars 3, whatever else they made that I forgot to watch. This one is pretty good. And, you know, one of the great things about it is that it remembers the character arcs from the previous movie. It remembers what the characters have been through so that it feels natural to transition from one movie to the next. So yeah, I think that this movie does a good expansion of the original one. It is also pretty emotional too. Maybe not as much as the first one, but it does hit the heart at some parts. Anyway, I'm gonna put this movie in A tier. Let's put it next to its best friend, the original. And with that, we have one franchise left. It was the only one that I tried to keep out of chronological order. And that franchise is Planes. The existence of these movies is an enigma in and of itself. How not one, but two of these movies released and no one really seems to care at all is just bizarre. I can't remember this movie releasing. It feels like they both came out at the same time. They're basically the same thing. When you've seen one, you've seen the other. One movie has a scene, and then the other movie has the same scene. They're in different discs. They're in different files. They came in different VHS tapes. They were released at different theatrical times, but it's the same movie. The second movie is Fire in It, I think. The first one is Absent from the Eternal Flame. Well, that's all the Disney films that I've watched. This is the beginning of the home stretch for a very long journey that I've been on to finish this project. So stick around to see what new opinions that I have, and which ones you may agree with, and which ones you may want to see thrown into a garbage can. And make sure to stay tuned until the end, because there's a super secret surprise that you may not know about. Anyways, thank you for watching this far, or listening, I hope. And I hope that you have a good day, and I hope that this made your day a little bit better, just because I think it's pretty neat. Anyway, I'll see you in part 2 later.